I think, yeah, it's 19 people already here. No one in the waiting room. Should we just kick it off? Okay, I guess we'll start now. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Vasilchenko. I'm from Open Lab, and I'll be your panel facilitator for today. It's actually my first time ever doing this, so don't be harsh on me. And we are here today to talk about HCI education in the time of social distancing and about possibilities of how can we think about redesigning our teaching to support better learning. Just before I start more about the topic, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. This session is, most of the sessions during this festival are recorded and live streamed. So if anyone has any concerns about it, be aware. Thank you, Daniel. And yes, we have Daniel Perry here as our technical moderator. So if you ever have any technical issues, just talk to him in the chat. And yes, we do have chat functionality, which we'll be relying on to receive questions. Please don't wait till the end of the presentation session to pop a question in. If you have anything to say, just let us know in the chat. And we'll try to pick it up from there and give you a possibility to speak or read it for you. We have 3 hashtags. One is HCI Summerfest. This is the general hashtag for the whole festival during this week. And if you'd like to share something about this session or other sessions in the week, please use it. This will give opportunity for the organizers to create a nice summary report at the end of the week. Also, if you find something particularly aspiring or something which you'd like to highlight, please use aspirational HCI. And finally, 4 of us here would like you to use HCIvideoW, which stands for HCI Video Workshop hashtag, which will be helpful for us to keep track of our activity as part of the other initiative, which I'll be talking about soon. So I guess that's more or less everything. First housekeeping. Okay. As I mentioned, the topic is HCI education, and I'm here with 3 other brilliant speakers. Not that I'm considering myself brilliant, but they are kind of stellar anyway. Alan Dix, probably many of you are aware of him. Chris Evans and Adriana Wilde. And we 4 have been doing some activities, namely workshop and follow-up meetings, as a response to the current situation where everyone has to be forced to teach remotely and base their teaching delivery on recorded or live video. So we organized a workshop back in April, which was particularly focused on use of video for HCI education. And we wanted to not to create a community, because the community of HCI education educators already exists, but we wanted to bring people together to talk about video in particular. But probably not surprisingly, we were talking not only about video, but about current challenges, which is most pressed topic today anyway. And we had about 50 participants and overall who were participating in the first or second workshop, part of the workshop, and then we had bi-weekly meetings. And you can see a map from the representing the geography of our community. And the discussion we aimed at creating some sort of a list of resources that could be useful for anyone who could who want to improve their teaching and learning in the remote situation. The list of topics that were discussed was very long. Yesterday I was trying to pick up just a few to highlight, and this is my impression of that, but probably Alan, Chris and Adriana would have different opinion. But what we were discussing is that as many teachers kind of felt inexperienced in delivering the materials remotely, they felt that they need some extra support in creation of the effective teaching environment for the video-based, remote-based teaching, as well as the some support to create those materials themselves. And this probably what Alan and Chris' talk today would be about, how to make the materials more engaging and more effective, and how to create that that sort of the environment of learning through video delivery. Many of the participants also were concerned with the possibility or the challenge of creation the same level of engagement from the student as they used to have in the face-to-face interaction. And we were discussing, is it true to try, is it good way to try to just replicate the same engagement, the same approaches to teaching, or we have to think about it differently, because it is a different thing and it probably has some other way to do the engagement. And also many of the participants picked up about the challenge of creating collaborative projects, how to facilitate students' collaboration through the remote teaching, how to facilitate the artifact creation, how to make the prototyping easier, the creation and the presentation and the evaluation of those things. But also, as I said, there were many challenges that were discussed, but we all believe that teaching remotely is not only a big challenge, it also has some opportunities which we could pick up and rely on to make our life easier and students' learning more enjoyable. So some of the themes that were coming out from our discussion was that online teaching is helpful for students with disabilities, just like flipped classroom teaching could help students to study in their own space, time and pace. And there is much less travel is needed right now. So people with physical disabilities, for example, are in a better place at the moment, and everyone is better connected now. Hopefully those who have internet at least are now know how to use all those tools like Zoom and Teams and everything else. And it's also easier to bring experts to the class. It's easier to connect some other people who were before would be thinking, oh, I need to travel there, so I can't, but now I just could spare half an hour or an hour and could join the session. Also, some people mentioned that with the online teaching, it is easier to get some sort of anonymized feedback or question right at the session, where a student might be too shy to do it openly, or if you do it just online after the class, it's not the same. Some even mentioned that work-life balance improved for people. I guess that could be challenging for other people, but still you don't have to travel too far. You didn't go to many conferences, so you spend a bit more time with your loved ones. Yeah, I'm probably talking a bit too long, but yes, this brings me to the introduction of our panelist. First of all is Alan Dix, who is a professor at Swansea University Computational Foundry, and he has been teaching online HCI and interaction design for ages. He's the author of the textbooks, of course, but he's done a lot of videos to deliver the materials for Interaction Design Foundation, for example. So today he will be presenting his experience how to do these video lectures engaging and effective. Alan is modestly calling himself amateur video making. I'll probably argue with that, but after him we have Chris, who is representing University College London Interaction Centre. And he has been teaching in flipped classroom for a very long time, and he could be he is a professional video maker in that regard. And Chris has been awarded various nominations and awards for his excellence in teaching. So he is surely the one who could share his experience in good teaching. And today he will be talking about adapting flipped classroom from normal to the remote settings. But the education is not only about the delivery of information, of course. So this brings me to Adriana's talk, who will be talking about assessment, how to make assessment and feedback in a large class more effective with the support of peer interaction, peer feedback. Adriana is representing Southampton University, and as part of her PhD work, she has been looking how to make what makes a successful teaching in higher education and MOOCs, and then that's her part of the experience that she would be sharing with us. Finally, I will say a couple of words about my PhD work, which was looking at collaborative learning and video coursework for HCI courses. Okay, I'll give the word to Alan.
Okay. You'll probably need to stop your screen share to start
yes.
Mine. And if I do this the right way around, I'll share my desktop and then hopefully this will work. Yay, is that okay? Brilliant, perfect. Okay, yeah, so I will emphasize, yeah, I'm probably an expert in HCI and hopefully to some extent in HCI teaching, but certainly I would say that I'm an amateur from a video production point of view, but trying to deal with that. But I have gone, as Anna was alluding, I've gone back a lot of years, actually, well, not so many years, but a reasonable amount of years doing this video. So my earliest sort of proper video production experience started in 2013, and I made a little mini MOOC at that point. It was the days when MOOCs were taking off everywhere. But crucially, it was also, I was working for a company called Panelists who produced educational software. And part of my reason for doing it was to gain experience in what it's like to do, to produce this sort of material. The materials I made then actually, as again, Anna mentioned at Interaction Design Foundation, so they were used and edited professionally, much more professionally, produce a course there, and I've produced other courses since. And I've also reproduced those materials now. I've gathered them together and I will update them a bit, but in as part of an exercise, I'm trying to bring a lot of the video materials I've got over the years and other things together, knowing that people need this kind of material at this stage. So that's sort of part of a mission to just try and get this material out. But crucially, one of the things I was trying to do at that point was to not be too professional, to actually think what's it like for the ordinary academic trying to create these kinds of materials. And that doesn't mean not doing as professional a job as you possibly can, but it is about the kinds of expectations you have, and particularly about cost, because producing really high quality materials is a very, very costly process. So the kind of materials I was producing at that page was classic, you know, the thing that everyone tells you not to do, which is head and shoulders plus PowerPoint slides, with some additional resources for offline use. So I remember that core course took produced about 25 hours of video over about a 3 to 4 month period. And I said, what I was thinking of us doing is producing academic sharing quality material. But crucially, one of the things I sort of took away from that was also some of the gaps, the little things that were difficult to do as an amateur, but which would be trivial as soon as you hit a professional. So a classic was clips. If you take like a 1 minute clip out of a video, and I produce videos, which Chris will tell you are far too long, right? So you want to take clips out of them to share, to use in a lecture. There's little things like as soon as you cut, you get this sort of sound as the sound starts. And I remember a few years ago experimenting with and I will make this available a bit more soon, but a little clippy tool, all it did was produce a false video record or video playback head, but only of the length of the video, and ramp the sound up over the first 1 minute, which is what any video person would do professionally, but just did it as part of it as a tool. And it just turned what was horribly nasty into something that looked just like pretty much what you'd expect. Working on that principle, and again, part of this releasing lots of tools, one of the things I've again been trying to sort of think about is what are the things that just make life a little bit better with ordinary stuff. So this is an example of something I've been using with, and I'll retrofit some all my old videos over time, but with when I've given talks recently, I've been videoing myself as I give the talk. And this is a tool that allows you to see the slides alongside. It moves the slides as the video goes on, but also allows you to navigate using the slides. And this is really inspired by work that goes way back to Classroom 2000, very, very early work in this area. But it is, that ability just to be able to say, I want to see a slide, what was said then. Not complicated, but actually from a, allows a significant increase in the value of what would otherwise be pretty basic material. So that's sort of one tool in this sort of area. As Anna said, one of the things we're looking at too is how sometimes you lose stuff, but can you gain stuff as well? And in one of our discussion sessions we had on a Thursday afternoon a month, we were talking about these issues about physical prototyping, and the fact you can't just grab, a student can't give you the thing and you can put it in your hand and say, what happens if I press that button? That's not going to happen. But then thinking about ways that we could actually achieve that. So again, there's another prototype which I'll share the links afterwards. I'm not sure the easiest way to do it, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. So you can play with this online. So this is a little prototype made of a prototype for making prototypes, if that makes sense. So this is a tool where I made a little physical prototype. I should have brought it with me now, a little boat, which is for controlling, the idea is it's for controlling a remote controlled ship. And what I have is a series of little clips of video showing different actions and also their effects, connected to like a little state model of what the controller does. And what you can do is you can sort of see on the left-hand side there, it tells you what actions are available at that time, like you can move the little flag, you can open the hatch. You press the button, but what it then does is show you the video of the person pressing the button, and then you can see the impact of that. But also there's a little video at the beginning that just shows you sort of talking through this thing, and you get a sense of like the physical weight of the device, which actually, of course, isn't the physical weight you act it to be, but you can create them. So it was interesting that there were some things that you got out of the video that you wouldn't get if you picked it up, as well as things which were done less well, but at least passably well. And then perhaps other things that would have been difficult in a real one. So you can actually emulate, as I said, as you press the button, you get the video of the ship doing, turning around in the sea and that kind of thing. And yeah, so that's basically it. The tools I've talked about, if you're interested in any of them, give me a shout, because I'm interested in, if people want them, I want to develop them. If not, then they can sort of go the way of nice, bright ideas. And also, I said, I'm really keen to sort of share existing video materials. So again, give me shouts if there's things I've ever produced over the years and you think, I wish somebody would do a video on that, I will try and do that, and other things. And I'll pass that to Anna now. Yeah. Well,
actually, Annie already had a question to share the navigate by slides in the chat, so.
Sorry,
definitely. You said you're happy to share your resources, so you already have one request in the chat.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess it's Chris now.
Okay.
It's not my share. Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So I'm going to be talking about kind of what I did in response to COVID-19, knowing that all of a sudden everyone was going to have to teach online, and the problems that would present people. one of the first things I did was start up a playlist on my YouTube channel with some videos about how to teach online, from very basic things like equipment and sound and lighting and different technologies. I've shared the link with everyone in the chat. But I noticed that there were various barriers to people successfully moving to teaching online, and a lot of them related to this assumption. The assumption that I'm trying to question is this idea that lectures are a good way to teach, and this seemed to get in the way of everything. So what I wanted to do was give a presentation where I would look at different ways in which this assumption was experienced by people. And I thought I would do that with a format that some of you would be familiar, which is personas. So I've created a number of personas. These are really designed to be kind of thought-provoking, rather than me giving any particular answers. They're designed to perhaps stimulate some discussion or even debate. So as I go through these, you might like to, for each one, ask yourself a couple of things. One is, to what extent does this person, this persona, make this assumption? And the second thing you want to ask yourself is, do you relate to this persona? Do you recognize this in yourself, or do you recognize this in somebody else? So it's a story of personas, and I have to make a disclaimer that, as they say, a similarity of these personas to anyone alive or dead is entirely coincidental. These are not real people. These are caricatures of people types, if you like. And here's my first persona. This is Professor Nobel. He's an academic, and he's typical of my university, University College London. He is hired for his research expertise, not his teaching. He's only ever experienced lectures, and his response to COVID-19 and teaching online is to take some lecture capture videos that he was forced to record last year, or were recorded on his behalf, and provide links to them online. See if you recognize this character, and ask yourself, do you think he assumes that lectures are a good way to teach? Persona number 2 is Dr. Panic. See if you know Dr. Panic. Dr. Panic was hired for research and teaching, and is very worried that if she makes these videos that capture her teaching now, then they will use these videos next year, and she won't be needed. She'll be out of a job. And the next persona is Dr. New Kid. Dr. New Kid thinks lectures are boring, likes experimenting, and sees COVID-19 as an opportunity to do something new and different. Do you know any Dr. New Kids? Next persona, Mr. Smith. I know Mr. Smith very well. He works for computer support, and his obsession is with security. Basically, we're not allowed to use any software at all. If we have to, it has to be university approved and have lead reinforced armor plating. And one of the things that he hates is having to update manuals. And every time someone comes up with a new piece of software, everything needs to be written, and he hates that. But there is one thing that he likes, and that is coming up with new things that we can't do. New restrictions on our possibilities. I don't know if you've ever met Mr. Smith. My next persona is Francois. Francois is a university student, and he's very upset that COVID-19 has interrupted his happy student life, and put him at a disadvantage, both in terms of life, but also academically. He feels that he's going to be badly treated academically. And he thinks that online is an inferior way of teaching and learning, partly because that's what the lecturers keep telling him. They keep telling him that face-to-face is better, and not surprisingly, he believes it. And he's worried about everything, particularly COVID-19. And then the third persona you might recognize is Dr. Chris. Dr. Chris has 57 alternatives to lectures. You can find them in my Twitter feed if you're interested in them. And he's trying to figure out how to use physical things online. So Alan was talking about physical prototypes. One of my current obsessions is this. I don't know if anyone recognizes this. I don't really expect anyone to recognize. Alan might, I don't know. This is a toy from the early 1980s, I think. It's a programmable robot. You have to program it in the panel at the top. And I used this in my class, or at least I did last year, getting groups of people, sorry, Dr. Chris used it in his class last year, getting groups of people to type in some code without knowing what would happen, and then observing how Big Track performed in order to figure out how you go about programming it. And so the question then becomes, how on earth can you reproduce? I can't give everyone a Big Track. How on earth can you get people to perform this kind of very physical, interactive activity in the online world? My 5 minutes are up, so that brings me to my overview of moving online. Back to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, now it's Adriana's turn.
Unmute myself and share the screen. Once
Chris probably need to unshare it.
Yeah, waiting for it to, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
okay, and I want to share this one. Come on, 3. How you? This one. Share this one. Hope you see my screen now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is not the title that Anna told you I was going to talk about, but sorry about that. But I am very much going to talk about the learner's perspective and how this going into digital environment solely can help us. And I'm going to use all of my time just deconstructing this title. So I'm going to start with learning, just an old Google there, and we pick up that it's knowledge and skills, and there is a bit of attention between these two things. When we're talking about learning, we want to support the acquisition of knowledge, but also the skills. So there's something at the back of our minds of how can we do this best? And then at scale, that's yet another challenge. So we have scalability being a problem, being the capability to perform well under an increased or expanding workload or scope that may sound familiar to a lot of us. And this is hard enough to do in face-to-face instruction, let alone in the situation we're with now. Because much of what we do in face-to-face instruction in HCI does not scale well. This is my lovely class of interaction, it was HCI Principles and Methods in St. Andrews. 20 students, we did a lot of interactive things, lots of, prototyping things and talking to each other, exploiting that peer support. And it was very interactive class, as I said. There was a sense of community and mutual support, which is evident in all the class activities. This doesn't scale well when you have 200 students and not necessarily translate well either to the online world. So one size does not fit all. But then we want to capitalize our peer support. We have more potential peers when we have the online environment. And not only just the more, we have the capability of engaging with each other in different ways. So they can support each other for this acquisition of knowledge, as we were talking before. They can provide feedback to each other in a more tight cycle than as an academic lecturer can do, possibly. But coming back to the having more peers in a face-to-face environment might be isolating. Remember my slide with the lots of students in a classroom, that they are really just interacting with the people physically next to them. When you have the online digital environment, you may interact with people who are not necessarily next to you, that you have also the capability of interacting with them asynchronously. And hence we can look at one kind of peer-supported digital environment. So I'm talking here about Pwise. Some of us, I would like to see in the chat if many of us, or maybe how many of us have used Pwise. I think Rachel's there. I'm sure she has heard some of this before. But it's basically it's a web-based software that supports the authoring, sharing, answering, evaluating, and discussing student authors' MCQs. So students themselves produce the questions. So there is engagement in a way that they are producing. It's not just memorizing by rote what they have to maybe from the text, but also creating trying to put themselves in the shoes of the assessor, creating these questions. And I don't need to tell this community what HCI stands for, but one important point about our discipline is it's not always easy to make MCQs about. You know, it's very easy, and in exact sciences, I say STEM in this paper I'm citing there that we did a couple of years ago. It's very easy because there's only one definite answer, but it's a bit more delicate to do when there are some topics that are a bit less black and white, let's say. I invite you to read the paper for seeing those tips for how to use Pwise for HCI. One thing is that students interacted with it very well. So, and they used it not just in the production of the questions, but also for their revisions. So this 6,000 interactions, I highlight 6,482, is interactions of students using the tool for revision when it was no longer mandatory for them to do anything with Pwise. Well, move on. This is just showing the peaks of my 2 deadlines. I asked them to submit a minimum of 4 questions each, and by certain dates. And they did, close to the deadline, typical, if you see the first number of questions approaching the deadline, it ramps up to nearly the deadline just to meet the commitment. But if you see the bottom side, like how much they engaged in answering those questions made by the community, it just was out of scale, out of what we expected. But I just want to highlight this bit about the interactions. And this is something that we talked a little bit in another panel that I put the link there. And it's also part of what I'm studying within my PhD thesis. So I'm looking at learners engaging in peer-supported digital environments. So in particular, Pwise, like I'm just talking about, but also MOOCs. So this is something, like Alan was saying earlier, that has been going on for a long time. And what we have is learners engaging in those digital environments and leaving a digital trace on that engagement that we can study to support them best. And then that after that, they come out of those courses with an outcome. If it's in Pwise, they come out passing or failing their course, or top grades or bottom grades, wherever. And in MOOCs, they may complete the course or not, etc. So it will be interesting to look at this type of interaction. And this is something I'm very happy to talk about in another occasion, because I'm very pressed with time now. But I just wanted, with these slides, is just show you that is a lot that we can see, all these digital traces that we get, not only what questions they asked. If you see in here, you probably don't see my mouse, but if you see here, we get for each of the questions, who created it, what the possible answers are there, how many people answered, and because Pwise has a gamified approach, people pursue badges, and this is very, very rich. So to look at, and maybe I talk. Thank you for for that circle there. Maybe we'll talk about this in another occasion, or if you have any questions. I also included a slide that you can screenshot if you want to look at other things that you can reference, look at a bit more detail. But this is my slide of the takeaways of my exploration. It's that HCI has some subjective measures that that we need to take into account, that makes it somehow challenging to do to use peer-supported digital environments like Pwise, but it's huge help to capitalize these interactions. And we can learn a lot from MOOCs, as I said in another occasion, when we're talking about scaling and getting out of our comfort zone. And since I got your attention, I'm going to make a plug here, which is the HCIvideoW community that Anna introduced, and this is part of that, and we have some of our members attending today. And also we have the HCI Education Workshop that usually takes place in AVI, and we are going to go with that, most possibly online, because who knows how things are going to be in October when this is supposed to be taking place, but we're still receiving submissions, and I invite you to participate, to talk about your experiences in HCI education, and that's me. Pass to Anna again.
Thank you, Adriana. Well, we are indeed a little bit pressed with time, so I guess I'll just keep my talk. I was about to say that.
Let me stop sharing first.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to share my screens. It doesn't really matter anyway. I just wanted to add that I read the chat discussion at the moment, and Ahmed was highlighting how to assess coursework when it's not, when the classes are getting bigger and bigger. It's very hard to do the coursework instead of exams. And this is what I wanted to say, that although video coursework is one of the example of student-produced artifacts, student-produced student project results is a great way to facilitate learning, reflective learning, to encourage students to develop additional skills. It has its own challenge of assessment, and unfortunately I don't have an answer for that yet. So, but maybe we could discuss it even further with the wider community. And if anyone has any tips about that, please share with me, Ahmed, and everyone else. I think Chris was answering something, but I don't know, was it about the assessment of projects or not?
It was about scaling exams.
Right, I guess we'll still have about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes to talk, to discuss. If anyone has a question, let us know.
If I may chip in this, because actually Pwise, when we used it, it was one of the objectives of using it is to prepare students to approach HCI with a MCQ perspective, because half of the exam was going to be MCQ. And that is one way that could be used for scaling, because half of the exam was marked automatically, because we use question mark perception for that. Yeah, that's the experience we had with that.
Adriana, maybe you could stop sharing your screen, and does anyone has a question to ask with the voice? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate on this. Yeah, so.
Yes, Ahmed?
Yeah, so because we rely on coursework, and I teach 2 modules, one introduction to HCI and one advanced interaction design. In both cases, we give them a design challenge, and the first one they design, their submission is interactive prototype with a design process. The second one is a design rationale and evaluation and so on. It's something that we have to really spend maybe an hour to assess like one submission. And when I started teaching the module, we had like 30 students now we are expecting, last year I had 140 and we're expecting more next year. So I really like the assessment approach we had, but it's proving to be more and more challenging. Even with having many demonstrators to help, I still need to do moderation. And yeah, I'm curious about the peer assessment, and to what extent can you use that as a alternative maybe, and how do the students perceive it? Is it just for formative feedback, or can you use it actually for part of the summative assessment as well? Just so
Adriana,
you know who's talking.
Yeah.
or Alan?
Yes,
Yes.
there is. I mean, I'm not an expert in it. I answered partly in the chat about this too, but there is certainly, for going back many, many years, work on peer assessment, including as actual things that go on people's marks at the end, although it is problematic and a lot of universities have to do, but it's something that's certainly 20, 25 years, probably longer, it's been happening. I was pointing to, I know FutureLearn did some quite extensive, and obviously again with FutureLearn, that's not usually going into a certification or something like that, but they certainly did some quite extensive work on trying to work out what's number of peer assessments you needed in order to have a certain level of reliability and consistency with, should we say, expert marking. And crucially though, that one of the big things, and certainly from a formative point of view, is, and I'm sure this is true of the MCQ writing as well, is of course the impact that has as a learning thing. So if you forget the assessment, that peer assessment as a way of learning, you know, being critical about something is, you know, just ramps everything into a different level. So yeah, so we have this, so there can be issues in terms of universities and validations and all that sort of stuff. But so it's a very old issue. It's been around for quite a long time, and there are ways that people have dealt with it. But actually, probably as a, you know, in terms of education, it's wonderful. I've not done it myself, mind, because I've never risked it either. So having said that, I'll pass back. I'm an amateur still, you see.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I keep hearing about Pwise again and again. I think there is no way avoiding looking at it now, especially now we are expected to redesign our modules. So I think this is the perfect time to properly look at it. So you may receive some questions from me while I'm redesigning things. Be prepared for that.
Well, I think it's a good thing that Ahmed asked about asking a question. I wanted to mention that I guess many of you know, but there is a Facebook group for HCI educators where you could just pop in any questions, and there is a friendly community which usually try to answer that. I know Ahmed knows it, but just in case anyone not. Anyone has any other questions? Or I have a long list. Yes, Ahmed.
I have another question, but I don't want to dominate the questioning. But the challenge, I can imagine a lot of ways where I can do lectures and seminars using videos and online. But the challenge is getting them to do practical work, like, and especially what used to be group work, like Alan talked about prototyping, and so we do loads of sessions where they work in groups, build the prototypes, brainstorms, and things like that. And all the guidelines, they seem to like almost avoid talking about these. They talk a lot about lectures and seminars, and then you have to do practicals, and that's it. No one talks about it. So I wonder what experiences you have in trying to run something similar to face-to-face group work prototyping online.
Maybe Chris?
You're asking me?
Yeah, as I just thought, maybe you have any advice on how did you do your practical sessions?
So I'm not sure what you mean by practical, but you can make use of the breakout rooms. I think that's an incredible tool in things like Zoom, where people can go off into smaller groups and do something and then report back. Also, you can use controlling other people's screens. So one of the problems that I've had is how you would run a computer laboratory class. But what you can do is go into an individual screen and make changes as if you were actually in the lab with them and sitting down next to them. So the two things, I think, together, breakout rooms and controlling somebody's screen, make that possible.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I was talking more about physical, like paper prototyping, things where they are expected to work together around like physical artifacts. I mean, you talked about, but even doesn't necessarily have to be technology, but even building a paper prototype and evaluating and testing it.
I just did paper prototyping with 2 classes, one 40 students, one 100 students, and with breakout rooms like Chris suggested, and a lot of preparation in advance in terms of templates. What does a paper prototype look like? It was a little bit strange to say, okay, you have to do it on paper, but then you still have to share it digitally. That was really awkward, but I'm a big fan of paper. This way, if they didn't do it now, they would probably never ever do it. So they believed me, they did it, and it worked really well. We had 48 parallel sessions in the 100 people class, and I have TAs for each 25 students. There's a TA, and the TAs were able to review them, watch the students doing like a participant, researcher, and observer in each breakout rooms, and then rotate them every time increment, and it worked really, really well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ilona.
One of the other techniques that I use is to get people to create and interact with their paper prototypes or physical prototypes, but in the process create a video which they then share with the rest of the class.
It was interesting. I was going to say that the tool I was showing you with the physical one, it's I didn't try it, but I could imagine you could do similar things with the paper one as well, where you could actually have that. Certainly you could with that. I do it stills, in fact, easier than the video clips. Well, you could see the finger pressing it, but you could certainly have the prototype there. Do the presses, and you can edit it into a scenario video, or that tool I showed you, you could actually have it so then on the video you could press on the interface, you could actually say, I want to do this action now, and see it work through on the paper. I should have a go and do a paper prototype and put it into the tool and see what it looks like, but I think it would work. Yeah.
I think we have a nice question from Karina Gonzalez. Karina, would you like to speak it out?
Yeah, I'm Karina Gonzalez from University of La Laguna in Tenerife. My question is regarding to intangible interactions, because now we have the paper prototyping on web or tablet or different tangible interactions. But what about the intangible interactions like voice interaction and work groups working on that? And that's my question regarding, because my next talent for the next course will be to do that. And if anyone has experience, I'm really grateful from learn from you.
Can you perhaps expand on what you mean by an intangible interaction?
Yes, like voice-based interactions, for example. Or yes, mainly.
So a conversational interface.
Another sense, yes. Another sense, like, yes, excluding the paper base or physical base.
Anyone?
Well, what we noticed in our workshop was that the communication was done purely by voice. There was no remote sharing of screen, but it was really interesting in the descriptiveness of the conversation that took place as the participants would try to engage with the remote paper prototype. So it's actually much more descriptive and detailed than normally we would expect. So it's not actually, you know, so some of them actually had simulated voice inputs and stuff like that, but it's like Wizard of Oz acting out and then iterating and playing the computer as a, you know, so again, very extreme simulation, but it worked really effectively in there. I don't have any experience with the other kind.
Yeah, another thing is occurred to me that perhaps you would like to look at using Discord as a platform, because you can have the text and you have the voice, and then you can, you know, you can have that layer of commenting on the interaction when the voice, the channel, the voice channel is for the interaction, and the meta evaluation thing is on in the text, for example.
Great idea. Really, really good idea. Okay. Yeah, using Discord.
Someone mentioned Marvel pop art. Albert Kunze, could you maybe say something about it, if you'd like? Albert?
Maybe he can't.
Oh, okay. No. Okay. It's, Chris actually already popped in a link to this app, so maybe everyone could look at it later. We have just about a minute before we need to wrap up. If anyone has any other urgent burning questions, please shout now.
Join our community. You know, we meet each other, we meet quite regularly. So this is an opportunity to talk to each other and learn from each other.
Yes, that's what I also wanted to say, that we've been meeting bi-weekly with Alan, Chris, Adriana, and a few of those who are here today. We will be discussing more issues during the summer, how to prepare for the next semester, which will be hybrid or still completely remote for many of us. And then, yeah, join HCI Education Video community. We did share the slides, the link to the website, and then we also have...
Hamid wants to know whether the chat will be archived.
I will save it and I'll pop it into the notes. We have a live document in Google to collect all the discussion, the notes we're having during the meetings. Maybe at some point we'll create a bit nicer looking resource with tips and techniques and all other things. We do have a list of resources on Alan's website on the HCI Video workshop series. So yeah, just join us. We also have a JISC web emailing list, which we use to announce any meetings and activities from now on. So please let us know somehow, me or Alan or any one of us, and then yeah, we'll keep you updated. Thank you very much everyone for joining us today. I think it was good.
There's a question in the chat before we finish about when the next meeting will be.
Usually every 2 weeks, and Alan has a list we manage to let people know exactly when.
So how can we communicate that to people?
I should make it, there's a way in HCIvideoList of making it so that you can mail a list and get to join, and I have not quite worked that one out. But if you want, send me an email and I will add you to the JISC mail list, and then we say when that's on then. We also usually announce onto the HCI Creators Facebook group as well.
Can we can we share your email address?
Yes, it is not very secret on the web. So I'm either alan@hcibook.com.
Okay, I guess, yes, Alan is typing his email and I probably need to wrap up because the next session, which will be announcing design sprint winners, will start in 3 minutes. Sorry, Daniel, we will take 2 minutes longer. Thank you everyone once again, and goodbye from us.
Okay, bye.